When Sega Rally 2 launched in arcades in early 1998, Sega had yet another arcade hit on their hands. Powered by the Model 3 board, it brought best-in-class visuals, an increased roster of cars and new tracks in an effort to expand on the classic original. The graphics, which I thought were photorealistic at the time, were well beyond any current home console. But when Sega announced their new Dreamcast console not long after, a Sega Rally 2 port felt inevitable. Soon, not only was it announced, but it was confirmed to have a slew of extra content. It sounded like the ultimate Sega racing game. As more details emerged, it was clear that the PC port and the Dreamcast version of Sega Rally 2 were being developed side by side, and sure enough, the Dreamcast release was powered by the Windows CE operating system. Unfortunately for all the promise, Sega Rally 2 ended up being a decent racer on the Dreamcast, but not a classic to the degree that the first game was on Sega Saturn. The darkened visuals and uneven frame rate that frequently dropped below its target meant that the game wasn't as polished as its arcade counterpart or even its prequel. The PC version, meanwhile, developed in parallel, could target 60 frames per second more regularly, but suffered from issues such as frame pacing and compatibility, making it almost impossible to play on modern PC hardware, especially when it only supports 2 resolutions. However, in the last year or so, a dedicated coder by the name of OldNewPixel created a repack of the PC version of Sega Rally 2, called the 25th Anniversary Edition. How much does this improve the home experience of Sega Rally 2? Let's find out. The first version of this patch came in August 2024, and there have been a slew of updates since. While we here at the Sega Guys do try to keep on top of all the homebrew developments, there's often so much that we can't cover it all. This, however, really caught my eye, and given our love for the series, I thought that it would be well worth a look. The patch was brought to my attention by ARC Arcade Racing on his Twitter account, where he showed off some gameplay on the repackaged version versus the arcade original. My interest piqued, I checked the package out myself on archive.org. The latest update was as of this year and features a number of small improvements that showed how dedicated OldNewPixel was to this game. Installing from the archive is simple. You simply download the installer, and then that itself lets you install onto your PC. It's here that you first get a number of choices, which shaders and overlays you want and which version of the soundtrack you want installed. Setup is easy, and you don't need your old PC CD or CD image. It's all playable from the game executables. Once you launch the game, well, Dreamcast veterans will feel right at home. The menu and UI is identical on PC to that of the console game. Don't be put off by the keyboard prompts though. One of the key benefits of this repack is the modern controller support. My Xbox Elite controller worked perfectly from the outset, and getting into the game, the benefits instantly became clear. For someone who is used to the Dreamcast version, having got it with my console all the way back in 1999, the jump in quality and stability was astounding. The features are as follows: high-res graphics up to 4K and higher, whatever your system supports, smooth rock-solid 60 frames per second with perfect frame time and frame pacing, fully compatible with X input controllers, a tailor-made control profile for seamless navigation through the game's menus and settings, restored and fully working force feedback and rumble or vibration features for your steering wheel or controller. Music has also now been fully restored, having been carefully selected from the highest quality sources available. A custom reshape profile has been included with some thematic overlays which fits the picture into the 4:3 ratio, and as I mentioned, the game CD is no longer required. The result is that this is now much closer to how Sega Rally 2 should play in the home, with a rock solid 60 frames per second really helping both the look and feel of the game. Now it's important to be clear on what this patch does and what it doesn't. This is still the PC and Dreamcast game to all intents and purposes. We have all the benefits of the extra courses and the 10-year championship mode, we have split screen multiplayer and all the extra content that made the home experience so much more worthwhile. Those 10-year championship tracks too look and feel fantastic with this update, and I found myself enjoying them an awful lot more. The arcade courses also benefit from the implementation of the Reshade profile, a post-processing tool that applies modern effects to the software. The most obvious change is the borders and overlays as previously mentioned, but the effects and setup very subtly bring the PC port closer in line to the Model 3 original. This is all made possible with DG Voodoo, a wrapper that adapts old graphics APIs into modern DirectX equivalents. As a result, the game looks and runs superbly and looks closer to the arcade game than ever before. But this is not a magic wand. Baked into the port of the game are all the assets from the home port. As a result, car model differences remain, as do the differences in textures and geometry. Changing those would require an enormous amount of work, completely rewriting, redeveloping and re-implementing the graphics and models, pretty much from scratch, or at the very least, having to convert the Model 3's quads into triangles to move the assets across. An impossibly complex and time-consuming task that I can't imagine we'll see. With that in mind, the efforts from OldNewPixel are extremely impressive. By using these tools, they have given us a home version of Sega Rally 2 that we can truly enjoy on modern systems. Comparing the free versions of Sega Rally 2 side by side with the arcade and Dreamcast versions compared to the new PC update, I think that the differences are quite striking. The Dreamcast port certainly shows its shortcomings with muddier visuals at a lower resolution and that lower and more erratic frame rate. The new PC 25th Anniversary Edition meanwhile looks smooth as butter with a rock solid frame rate and increased resolution. I've made some tweaks to the shaders and lighting here to really brighten the game up, and I think that it comes close to that Model 3 image. That said, the Model 3 game really does stand on its own with a clean presentation, even though it's operating below the PC resolution. You can see all of the extra geometry, such as the increased number of trees on the desert stage. If we switch out the split screen comparison for a full screen one, the differences become even more apparent. The forest stage is where I first noticed the erratic frame rate on the Dreamcast port back in the day, and the drops compared to this new version are obvious, especially when we add the Model 3 version to the mix, which adds even more detail and still looks night and day compared to the original port. However, the new PC 25th Anniversary Repack more than holds its own. The benefits of the new shaders, more stable frame rate and higher resolution definitely make it an excellent version in its own right. And that's the thing, Sega Rally 2 is a great game no matter where you play it. Sure, the Dreamcast and PC original versions have issues, but they were still solid racing games underneath. And while the Model 3 version looked amazing, it arguably lacked the clinical precision of the original Sega Rally, which made that game such an icon. And that's where this new PC version shines. It may not look as incredible as the Model 3 original, but it most certainly closes the gap visually whilst running at a rock solid 60 frames per second with far improved frame pacing and a higher rendering resolution than even the arcade game. Not only does Sega Rally 2 25th Anniversary Edition bring over the excellent visuals of the era over with that extremely enjoyable handling model, but it brings with it all the home extras that made both the PC and console versions much more substantial experiences. Playing this in the here and now, Sega Rally 2 really is a truly fantastic game, and this new version brings the best of both worlds to PC gamers. While it's been a little while since the last update, I'm curious as to what the future has in store for this version of the game, and I'll be certainly looking out for what OldNewPixel does in the future. In the meantime, visit the link in the description below for the download, and while you're at it, check out ARC Arcade Racing 2, especially if you love classic races. But that's all for now. Until next time, we will see you on the Sega side.